both sides were arguing about whether the Lisbon Treaty is another large step or a large step towards a federation of European states under a central government. Now, do you see that being the direction of Europe and under the Lisbon Treaty?
No, no. Not only is that not the direction, but I was a member of the negotiations that were called the Convention on the Future of Europe. Remember that team? I replaced Ray McCharry on it. And one of the issues that we all had, one real red line for smaller countries like Ireland, was any reference to federation or to federalisation. Not that a federated state is a bad thing. I mean, Germany is a federal state, the United States are federal states, they take a different view than we do. But there is one clause in this treaty that disproves that. More than anything else disproves that. There's a clause in this treaty that says the European Union only has those powers, which are conferred on it by the member states. And the member states can take those powers back at any time. That is not the beginning of a federal or a super state. That is what it is. The European Union is different. It's neither a unitary state nor is it a federal body. It is a group of countries, individual, sovereign, equal member states that have come together and pool small amounts of their sovereignty, which they can take back at any time, in order to achieve some greater purpose. It can be compared to an Irish mehel, the old mehel when people got together and went out to harvest the crops. Nobody lost. Everybody gained. There's a synergy by putting your efforts together. And it's not some threat to small countries. Now, I'll just give you one example. There was a referendum in Luxembourg a little while back. And you know, they didn't even discuss this issue about the weight of voting. They were sufficiently confident, a tiny little country, and they didn't have any of the insecurities that turn up in debates here in Ireland. I think what we have to do in Ireland is look at what has been our experience in Europe. Has it been good or has it been bad? Our experience has been universally good. Our experience has been that we've gained a measure of it. We've gained in stature. Our economy has become a much stronger economy. We have more jobs. We don't have to export our people anymore. We're a mecca from the point of view of foreign direct investment. We attract more foreign direct investment per capita than just about anybody else, for example, from the United States. And we do all of that because we're in Europe and because we're seen to be a player. If we want to influence Europe, and I think Europe can be a real power for good, if we want to influence Europe, the way you influence is by being on the field. It's not by being up in the stands. Danny Cohn-Bendit, who is the co-president of the European Greens in the European Parliament, he actually spoke about this treaty as giving Europe the opportunity to really make an input into the development of debates worldwide over the years ahead. Specifically, he was making the point that the European Union, we have values. We have values: democracy, the rule of law, equality of rights, respect for the individual citizen. We have values which are not always shared on the world stage. And isn't it a good thing if Europe, which is based on values which we all share, and based on principles which we all share, has a clearer voice on the world stage? You just think of the Iraq War. When the Americans and the British were discussing it, where was Europe? We were all over the place. Isn't it a good thing if Europe comes together? Isn't it a good thing that we do what we're doing in Chad, when we're out there defending people who have suffered for decades at the hands of warlords, suffered for decades at the hands of terrorists, where rape has been systematically used as an instrument of war, where starvation and mutilation has been a reality? Isn't it a good thing that Europe can actually stop that and help? I think it is. Now, I respect the fact that other people take a different view. I don't understand why Sinn Féin could call that a military adventure. That's their right. That's their right. I'm disappointed that they take that view. But I'm immensely proud of the Irish troops who have gone out there to try and help people, to try and bring them food, to try and bring them security. And I would be immensely proud if the European Union had a better say in the world stage from the point of view of how we get involved in the big debates. Think of the big issues that are coming down the line to us: energy security, globalization, climate change, mass migration, which goes way with climate change, issues of asylum, cross-border crime. Individual countries can't solve those problems. Even big countries can't solve those problems. Small countries, peripheral countries, as we're on an island off the coast of Europe, we can't solve them on our own. But if we come together and we play as a team, we can solve them.
But do we necessarily, to be able to solve them, do we necessarily have to give the decision-making process to a higher body? Is it not a case that we could maybe cooperate?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the point is we're not. Remember, the fundamental decisions on foreign policy, on defence, on security are all made by unanimity, by all the member states acting in concert in the Council of Ministers. Those are issues that we decided on. So we're not giving them to some non-Irish body. We're actually, what we're doing is we're sitting at the table with 26 other member states, hopefully to do the best that we can, for whether you're talking about peace, supporting people who are in crisis, or the energy crisis, bringing our policies together. And it makes sense. So for God's sake, you know full well, and I was born in Wexford, I wouldn't have won a hurling match out on the field on my own, but if I had the full team with me who were well trained and who were equipped, we would have won the hurling match. We sometimes did.
Finally, the topic of sovereignty and independence is an important theme for many of the Irish citizens who are looking at this treaty, with statements made by its opponents that it will create a federal Europe being rejected by its supporters. Is there any evidence that this treaty would make a federation of European states?
I think all one has to do is look at the wording of the amendment to our constitution. And section 10 of that makes it quite clear, that the state may ratify the Lisbon Treaty, blah, 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 and be a member of the union established by virtue of that treaty. So it's actually admitting that this is a new kind of format that has been created. And then you go on to the next section of the amendment, and it says to our constitution, section 11, which talks about that no provisions within our own Irish constitution will actually undermine our obligations to the new union that we become a member of. So clearly that does undermine our own sovereign rights enshrined within our own Irish constitution, and it's clear that the Irish constitution will become subservient to our obligations under the Lisbon Treaty, and that is extremely worrying. And I think people need to look at the wording to the constitutional amendment, and it makes it quite clear that the Lisbon Treaty would override our own constitutional rights. And when you consider that the Irish constitution, I suppose, is extremely important in that it is one of these constitutions that was drafted up in such a way that it's the people who have the final say. Article 6 of the Irish constitution talks about all power comes from the people, and it is the people who will have the final say. And it's on that basis that we're having this referendum in the first place, because the late Raymond Crotty went to the Supreme Court and fought for the right Irish people to decide, to give permission for our government to hand over more power to Brussels out of our constitution. So the reason we're having this referendum is because we're giving away power that's enshrined within the Irish constitution to the EU, and the only people who can allow that to happen are the citizens of Ireland who have a vote in this referendum. So it's of fundamental importance that people actually examine the wording of the amendment to our constitution, because it makes it quite clear as to what we're actually doing